We've arrived at the end of 2025 with one final Drilling Deeper episode for you to enjoy. We'll look back on the year that was, feature a couple of guests from recent industry meetings, and share our excitement for 2026 in the aggregate industry, all on today's show. I'm Kevin Yannick, Editorial Director of Pit & Quarry, alongside Managing Editor Jack Kapansky. We're excited to bring you this year-end episode. It's December 11th here in our downtown Cleveland office, and we're dropping this on December 30th, so we want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Hope you had a great holiday, and we're right at the very end, or just about the very end of the 2025 calendar year, and hope you all have a Happy New Year out there. Same to you, Jack.
Yeah, you as well, Kevin. Hope you had a nice holiday season. Turning the page. You know, we were talking before we started recording here. It's crazy to think this is our 57th episode. You know, we've been doing this for a little over 2 years now, and it's kind of like, where's the time gone in this? And it's also like, where the hell did 2025 go, man? I feel like we were just having our roundtable earlier this year in January in Arizona, and now all of a sudden we're here talking about Christmas and New Year's, and it's like never stops.
Yeah. Yes, the roundtable, we're putting the final touches on that, January 27, 28, down in Naples. If you're listening to this now, you're a producer, there's possibly still an opportunity you can join us. We're trying to finalize our roster at this stage, but check out pitandquarryroundtable.com for more information. But you're right, Jack. I mean, it's been a whirlwind year. It flew by once again, and on today's show, we're going to read through some of the most read stories of 2025, kind of just offer the headlines and a little bit of commentary on some of them, and kind of looking back, I'm like, man, some of these news items seem like they were so long ago. Some of these M&A transactions, some of these details that transpired feel like they happened yesterday in some other cases, but we've got a kind of a hodgepodge of content for you today on the show. At the top, we're going to kind of read through some of our most read 2025 news items and content pieces that appeared on pitandquarry.com. We've got a couple of interviews that Jack captured at the Ohio Aggregates and Industrial Minerals Association's annual meeting. That was in Columbus in November, and Jack sat down with a producer and equipment manufacturer. So we've got some sound on the state of the industry and what transpired at that Columbus, Ohio meeting. And toward the back end, we're going to look ahead to 2026 a little bit, share what we're excited about for the year that is ahead for the aggregates industry, and again, just a whole different plethora of pieces we're going to put together for this year-end episode of Drilling Deeper. But to start, Jack, let's get into these top stories, the most read stories of the year on pitandquarry.com, and we kind of pulled together 16 of them, 16 that kind of stood out and made for a good, healthy list that kind of fit a few themes that we're going to be hearing about. Equipment and technology being one, business, and safety a little bit. Those are the three pillars we traditionally cover as Pit & Quarry Magazine, as a brand. And you look at story number one, when our senior digital media specialist, Sydney Fisher, shared this list with me, I was kind of astounded. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be, but the top story, the most read story of the year was a Caterpillar item. The headline was Cat launches latest medium wheel loader. And that's actually one that you published back in July. It's interesting when new equipment comes across. We regularly will cover that. But the fact that this was the most read item says probably a couple of different things. Number one, first and foremost, that our readers, our listeners, they want to know what Caterpillar is doing. Absolutely. And when they've got some new equipment. And in this case, this story was tied to the release of the new 980 GC wheel loader. So I was very surprised that was the most read item of the year on pitandquarry.com, but lo and behold, there it was.
Yeah, in a way, you almost kind of hope, maybe it's a feature story or a story from a site we visited, something that, we sort of really sunk our time and energy into, and not to say we don't put our energy into stuff like this as well, but, as opposed to, sort of just a news item that, we get however many across our desk on a daily basis. But again, like you said, I think having a name like Cat out there is part of what makes it so enticing, where, again, people want to know what's going on. People are excited about what they might possibly be able to have in their quarries and in their operations going forward. And, we see that trend continue with our number two story. It's, sort of a look at what's new from Cat, Deere, and Komatsu. You kind of put three of those big players together. Those are always going to garner some clicks. So, again, I think just, sort of going to what the industry is keeping its eye on the most, and it's definitely some of those big players in the equipment sphere like Cat, Deere, and Komatsu.
When you think about the big equipment manufacturers, the haul trucks, excavators, and wheel loaders, that are traversing pits and quarries across the country. I mean, those are three of the big names. I mean, think about market share or quarries out there. I mean, majority of them probably have one of those at least, if not more, of those brands in their fleet. So in that number 2 item, what's new from Cat, Deere, and Komatsu, Jack? Again, we'd kind of repurposed that 980 GC wheel loader item and packaged it with a couple of other new technology developments. The Deere item was their new Operations Pro service, which was related to their operations center, which we've been hearing about for some time now. I know they're excited about that at John Deere, and Komatsu and Pronto had partnered to deploy some autonomous hauling technology. That's a partnership that's been around for a while, but they had added some tech to loaders in this instance. So again, everyone's kind of keeping an eye on what the big names are doing. So so that was our number 2 item of the year, most read on pitandquarry.com. And Jack, why don't you tell us what was third on the list?
Yeah, so obviously, like you mentioned at the start, sort of the idea of our 3 pillars of content kind of being tech, business, and safety. Looking on kind of the safety front, our third highest clicked article in 2025 was actually published in late 2024 when we published the 2024 mining fatality total numbers. If you're interested in finding that on the website, the headline is "Mine Fatalities Near All-Time Low as 2024 Approaches Finish." And we actually just recently published an updated mine fatality numbers for 2025 within the last couple weeks or so. And obviously, following the government shutdown, it was kind of interesting to see a lot of those sort of backlogged or backtracked fatality reports that weren't reported while the government was shut down and MSHA wasn't running. And actually, just before recording today, I did a check on MSHA's website, and there was actually one more fatality reported on November 22nd, bringing the unofficial total this year up to 30. So that, let me pull up the corresponding years. So that is, that surpasses last year's number of 28, which is also the total we had in 2022. It is below currently. Should it stay the same? Should no other fatalities be reported in December? It would be lower than 2021 and 2023, which had 38 and 40 fatalities respectively. So it's kind of one of those things trending in the right-ish direction, but obviously, you would love to see 0 ultimately, but you would love to see a smaller number there. And then just some sort of statistics, kind of looking at how these fatalities broke down. The deadliest month of this year was January so far, that had 5 fatalities, followed by September and July that each had 4. April was the only month with 0 fatalities. Looking at the leading causes, unsurprisingly, it's kind of what we've been seeing for a lot of years. Powered haulage was at 13, machinery was at 4. So you got 2 of those totaling more than half of what the total fatality numbers are. I know powered haulage has been a big emphasis of MSHA, as well as stuff like crystalline silica and a lot of other sort of focuses they've been implementing action on, if you will. So, hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, December is, December can be another month with 0 fatalities, but, yeah, kind of in a weird spot where, again, it's trending in the right direction, but, 30 is still 30 too many at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, just looking at back of that number 3 story on our website, they had a detail about it being the all-time low mark established in 2016. That was 25. So we continue to, as you kind of alluded to, Jack, kind of press towards 0, and that effort's not gonna wane. Producers, whether you're on the metal, non-metal side or on the coal side, we're continuing obviously to try to hit that low mark. So and as a magazine, we're regularly kind of keeping tabs on where those marks are, and we'll have a full year report probably in early January when MSHA has more data available on their website. So that's 3 of our top items, most read items of the year on pitandquarry.com. Number 4, Jack, it's funny, there's just a recurrence of names here, because again, we've got John Deere in the 4th spot with the headline of John Deere debuts digital self-repair tool. So John Deere gets 2 of the top 4 on pitandquarry.com this year. And we finally get some producer names as you venture into item number 5. Mergers and acquisitions are regularly getting traction on the website. We're covering those in the magazine and online. and there's no shortage of those these days. Martin Marietta is regularly pursuing their next transaction, and their exchange with Quikrete earlier this year, trading operational assets involving aggregates and cement, was our number 5 story, with the headline of Martin Marietta Quikrete to trade operational assets. And under the terms of that agreement, Martin Marietta was slated to receive aggregate operations totaling about 20 million tons, with reserves in multiple states, plus some in Western Canada. And Quikrete was going to get Martin Marietta's Midlothian cement plant and some cement terminals out of Texas, along with some ready-mix concrete assets. So deal-making continued, certainly in 2025. We've talked about that on the show, and just kind of glancing ahead at our top list here, Jack, we've got more M&A activity to come.
I think, definitely this was a big year, a big year for M&A activity, no doubt. I think it's kind of interesting that, this Martin Marietta Quikrete deal, sort of cracked the top 5, whereas I was surprised we didn't see Quikrete acquiring Summit and sort of some of the, that was something we covered a lot this year, sort of all the different developments as that progressed. So it's interesting to not see that in kind of this top batch of stories, but nonetheless, definitely a very exciting year for M&A activities, not only on the producer side, which again, we're going to be seeing some more of those headlines here as we keep going through this list, but also on the manufacturer side, which we're going to be seeing a little bit of as well. So I think a good sign of the industry's health that people are willing to go out and buy these companies, or, in Martin Marietta's case, make some of those strategic divestments and acquisitions like they did. So positive sign. Hopefully trends like that continue in 2025. And I know M&A activity is certainly good for our friends over at FMI Capital Advisors, and George Redden and Rob Minio are probably very happy that M&A activity is very healthy.
For sure. I mean, we saw, I think it was just yesterday, Jack, as we're sitting here, December 11th, the Fed just cut interest rates again. So, I mean, another reason why activity should only be bolstered in 2026. I think the Fed even came out and said, well, we don't think we can lower rates anymore. So this is the environment that we're handing you at this point. So, so get used to it. And an interest rate cut is certainly a welcome environment for anybody in the business world. So,
no doubt.
So that was our top 5, and we're kind of entering into our next batch of 5, but we've got number 6 here. Again, it's Caterpillar. Caterpillar comes in 6th with a headline of Caterpillar introduces autonomous water truck.
You got 2 buzzwords there. You got Caterpillar and autonomous. That was destined to do well.
Huge. So it was an interesting year for autonomy, and we talked about it on the show here a little bit. Even played some sound from some dealers, kind of about what's transpiring on that front of late. And Jack, we're only going to be talking about that more and more in the future. It's certainly exciting. The big players are getting into it. There's third-party vendors getting into that space. There's not one size plug-and-play model that producers are deploying to kind of go about this, but it seems like more and more of these producers, of our listeners out there, they're at least having conversations about it at this stage. It's not just a big producer thing anymore. It's kind of trickling down into at least the mid-size producer level at this stage, and something I'm certainly excited to look forward to covering in 2026 even more.
Yeah, no, like you said, I certainly don't think there's any signs of this slowing, and something we'll kind of get into a little bit later when we talk about one of the state association visits I had later this year. With that technology, like you said, there's a lot of those manufacturers that are really aiming to downsize it, which I think when Cat and Luck really came forward with that groundbreaking deal that they had to outfit the 777s at Luckstone's Bull Run plant in Chantilly, Virginia, a big part of the question was, okay, we're putting it on these 100-ton class haul trucks that are kind of on sort of the upper edge of what aggregate producers are going to use. Can it size down? Will it be able to get there? And I think, over the last year and a half, 2 years, however long it's been since they've been operating, and Luckstone also recently just hit 1 million tons hauled autonomously, so a super exciting benchmark there. You are seeing a lot more. You're seeing the Komatsus, you're seeing the Deeres, you're seeing the Caterpillars sort of work with these tech companies to downsize it a little bit, which I think, at least from my standpoint, was really kind of that biggest obstacle of getting this implemented wide scale aggregate wise, is that, again, these operations are running 25 to 70 ton haul trucks, some are going up to 90 or 100 on the higher end. wasn't really suitable for those smaller trucks now, but I think you're starting to see that more and more, and hopefully that opens the door toward more mid and smaller size operations adapting that kind of technology.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. The size has got to be appropriate. And I remember going to the CES show in 2023, I believe it was, out in Las Vegas. That's the Consumer Electronics Show. It's one of the biggest shows in the country, if not the biggest. And Luckstone was out there with Caterpillar. Pit and Quarry had a lot of coverage on that at the time, and they had basically equipped the technology onto a 777 100-ton hauler. And, that's the very, very high end of aggregate haulage, but that's not necessarily representative of most haulers out there in pits and quarries. So scaling it down, we're going to get there. Yeah. There's a lot of smart people that are tackling this and trying to figure it out. So just thinking about January of 23, kind of where we were at the starting point for aggregates with Luckstone getting there and kind of touting a lot of their efforts and the efforts to come at that Bull Run plant. We're virtually about 3 years from that at this stage, and I can only imagine where we're going to be in another 3 years and how many of those autonomous haulers are going to be traversing haul roads across all 50 states.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
For over 48 years, Crisp Industries in Bridgeport, Texas, has been a trusted leader in aggregate material handling systems. Crisp designs, fabricates, and installs custom solutions for the aggregate, sand, gravel, and mining industries, built on quality, innovation, and integrity. Join Crisp Industries at ConExpo-Con 2026 in Las Vegas, March 3rd to the 7th. Visit booth C31566 to meet the Crisp team and see what's new. For more information, call 940-683-4070. Well, that brings us to number 7 on our list, and that is another M&A deal involving Vulcan Materials and Cal Portland. The headline on our number 7 story was Cal Portland expanding with Vulcan Ready Mix deal. This one we reported on in late October, and basically it was a deal involving Ready Mix concrete assets in California where Cal Portland was taking those off of Vulcan's hands. Again, whether it's Vulcan, Martin Marietta, any of the other big guys, if there's some sort of deal coming about, our listeners want to know about it. And so Cal Portland Vulcan with that Ready Mix deal came in at number 7, and it kind of feeds us nicely into number 8, which is a rather large producer item or a news item involving a lot of different producers, 100 in fact, because our 8th most read item on pitandquarry.com in 2025 was this one with the headline of New Top 100 Crushed Stone Producers List Surfaces, and Vulcan Materials was number 1 on that, with Martin Marietta coming in at number 2. And the U.S. Geological Survey, Jack, as you know, they put out these lists not cyclically, I'd say, but they do put them out periodically. They actually were going through a stretch where we hadn't seen one of these in a while. Then Pit and Quarry will report on them. We've got the details on pitandquarry.com, these top 100 lists. And I can't remember a time where Vulcan was not 1 and Martin was not 2. And just looking at the top 5 there, you got CRH, Heidelberg Materials, and Wholesome at 3, 4, 5. But these are very well-read lists. Everybody wants to know where the big guys stand, where they rank. They don't produce, or they don't rather publish the tonnages that these producers are putting out every year. But USGS, as far as I understand it, they're measuring the top 100, or they formulate a list of top 100 producers based on their production output. So Vulcan is continuously just edging out Martin Marietta on that front, on the crushed stone front at least. So
yeah, and I'm sure Ward Nye is sitting in his office figuring out how he can best Tom Hill, soon to be Ronnie Pruitt, there to take that number 1 spot. But yeah, these are always super exciting, and it's kind of funny, at least in my experiences, where we'll be at an Ag One, we'll be at a ConExpo, a Mine Expo, we'll be at some big show, and we, depending on when it is, we might have one of these issues out there. It may have just recently come out, and someone will come up and be like, "Oh, I loved your top 100 list, man. That's great." And I'm kind of like, "Oh, thank you. We appreciate your reading." And I always feel obligated to throw in the caveat of, it's USGS's list. We just publish it, man. Like, I appreciate it. Thank you for reading, but we don't aggregate this ourselves. But it is certainly something that gets a lot of traction every year, and it's cool to see. I think not only do you have the big producers looking where they're at, I equally hear, I think, as much from the smaller producers, or maybe the contractors or mid-sized producers that are kind of like, "Oh, do we crack the top 100?" Or like, "Oh yeah, we moved up this much. We're moving up. We're doing something." Or they'll comment on how some of the bigger guys are doing. So those are always exciting when those do come around, and that kind of leads number 8 and number 9 sort of same
vein, I guess.
Same
right?
vein, yeah. Number nine being headlined. CRH still number 1 on USGS list of top 100 sand gravel producers. I kind of like that they break it up the way they do, where they've got crushed stone and then sand and gravel. I know, kind of lump it all together, so you're able to kind of see that dichotomy of where what company is maybe thriving in one area. Not to say that they're not doing well in the other area, but just kind of seeing that divide, I think is beneficial, at least on my end. And I like that we're able to selfishly get two top 100 lists published every year.
Yeah, for sure. And just looking at the top 5 of this top 100 list, Jack already hit it on the head with CRH being number 1 there in sand and gravel, whereas they were number 3 on the crushed stone producers list. So following CRH, we've got Vulcan at 2, Martin Marietta at 3, Knife River at 4, and Wholesome US at 5. That top 4 hasn't changed since the last time USGS put this out. We published this information in January of 25, and I think the last list, it must have come out in January of 24 or prior to that. But the top 10, I mean, the big producer names, Cemex, Granite, Summit was in there, although obviously they've kind of transitioned away. So I think the next list will have a little bit of a different look in the top 10. But as you alluded, Jack, these lists are well read, and I always look forward to them personally too, to see who's moved up, not just in the top 10, because those are pretty fixed from year to year, but sometimes you see somebody who was unranked and they'll climb into the top 50.
Yeah,
like, where'd they come from?
Absolutely, and you combine this list, which I think is again super valuable, because you can kind of see top performers from sort of a broad sense. You combine these with the quarterly reports we get every quarter, and a fourth quarter report that kind of gives you a look back on the year as a whole, where you're able to get some of those tonnages, get some of those values that all these top companies are doing. Super valuable, just to kind of gauge the health of the aggregate industry and where we were the past year and maybe what to expect from the year ahead.
Well, our 10th story, Jack, is on the M&A front. It's not the producer side. It's more on the OEM side, and we've got a deal involving Aztec Industries and TerraSource that went down midway. I guess it was back in the second quarter of 2025 when this was announced that Aztec had acquired TerraSource in a deal worth $245 million. And we had Kevin Hambris and Donald Rupert on the show not too long ago on the Drilling Deeper podcast. And obviously that's been a great partner to Pit and Quarry over the years in TerraSource, and they came together with Aztec not too long ago. So that's our first OEM acquisition, and it squeaked into our top 10. Number 11 on our list, and we're going to go all the way to 16, Jack. So, but going back to the producer side, we've got Wholesome Organizes executive team for Amrise spinoff. That comes in at number 11, and Amrise was something that kind of came about, I guess, over the last year, and it hasn't been a full year at this point. It's been, I guess about half a year where they've been operating as Amrise, maybe even a little bit less at this stage. But that was kind of something that emerged in 2024, and as they were kind of getting organized for their North American business coming out of Wholesome, a lot of the content and coverage that we put together was attracting readership from across the country. So Wholesome and Amrise spin-off details at number 11. And Jack, why don't you tell us where we're at number 12, since you alluded to this one earlier.
Yeah, so I kind of unintentionally spoiled number 12 for you guys, but number 12 came about midway through June, probably close to the midway point of the year as a whole, if you think about it. Luckstone and Caterpillar reaching an autonomous hauling milestone. As I mentioned earlier, they hit 1 million tons hauled autonomously at the Bull Run plant in Chantilly, Virginia. We got to hear from Charlie Luck and Denise Johnson, or I should say Charlie Luck from Luck Companies and Denise Johnson from Caterpillar, kind of sharing just what an accomplishment that is. And, I think hopefully what the future holds for autonomous hauling, and, just credit to both Caterpillar and Luckstone. Luckstone has been one of those companies that's never been shy to take on challenges like this or try new things. And obviously it's paying off for them in major dividends. And, shout out to Caterpillar for giving them the opportunity to do so and letting them kind of take hold and run with it, because I don't think anyone's surprised that they're thriving and doing well with it, but just a very exciting development, and hopefully that's a sign of things to come.
Look, again, Luckstone and Caterpillar on the autonomous hauling front is number 12, and And we've got another producer story here at number 13, that being Heidelberg Materials acquires Burnco assets in Canada, and that was a deal we reported on back at the very end of July. It involved Heidelberg getting 6 aggregate sites, 2 asphalt plants, and 3 ready-mix concrete plants, as well as a rail-served cement distribution terminal in the Edmonton, Alberta market. And just goes to show, I think we've already hit on Vulcan, had a deal that was obviously generating a lot of attention. Martin Marietta had one, and Heidelberg Materials, another top 5 producer. So readers go where the big guys are making activity. So that was number 13. And number 14, yet another top producer, another CRH headline here, but not necessarily on the deal front or deal-making front, but more about their year that was 2024. So number 14, we've got CRH characterizes 2024 as strong year. We published this back in February, and it was basically their 2024 full-year financial results that we reported on, their fourth quarter as well. And 2024 was a strong year overall for the industry. I think a lot of that kind of fed into 2025. And speaking of the quarterly reports, Jack, it was great to see that a lot of volumes had gone up in some of the quarterly reports that we reported on in the latest batch, with that being the third quarter of 2025. And I'd kind of written, I think in something, maybe my column or somewhere, or mentioned the fact that I was expecting the USGS to report on elevated crushed stone and sand and gravel volumes in the third quarter, and they actually did that. They collected all their data and made their estimates on how that production fared in Q3, and basically crushed stone was up 7% and sand and gravel was up less than 1%, but together they netted about a 5% gain, and we finally put an end to the quarterly slide that we've seen USGS reporting on. So whether it's the producers themselves saying this or USGS, who's collectively putting numbers out there and telling a story about how the aggregates industry is doing, 2024, 2025 was a strong year, whether you were CRH or somebody else.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in there, talking about this year's quarterly reports, at least the ones that we just saw for, I guess it would be the third quarter. I was so glad to finally go through a batch of quarterly reports where it seemed like every single one wasn't mentioning unseasonably wet weather, which obviously is a real thing, and I'm not using the air quotes to kind of say like, oh, that isn't what actually happened. It had been unseasonably wet, but I'm just glad we finally had a quarter where people were able to companies were able to get the volumes out they wanted to get out, which I think, helped kind of, maybe along with some price increases, make for a very, very good third quarter. I'm about to say, if Cleveland's any indication, it's probably going to be an unseasonably wet and unseasonably snowy fourth quarter.
For sure. I was just thinking that, yeah.
Unfortunately. But, hey, at least we had one. We had one, so hopefully that's a sign of things to come. But, yeah, I'm just glad that unseasonably wet weather was finally, for once in the last, 7 quarters, not a factor.
Yeah, if I was betting, Jack, I would say that those fourth quarter numbers are probably going to dip down again.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to Darian Hussein at Prolon the other day, and it's obviously been cold here in Cleveland. It's not snowing right now, but it was snowing like an hour ago when I was outside for lunch. And he's operating in southern Indiana, southwest Ohio area, and it sounded like he was outside when I had him on the phone. I'm like, "Are you working right now? You're outside?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's cold out here, but
gotta crush that rock."
Yeah, I mean, so we're trying to make use as we're getting to the end of the year, wherever you are, probably in the north, I guess, but trying to squeeze as much production out of the days that we have left. Just thinking over the last several years, the last several November, December, fourth quarter periods, Jack, it seemed like producers were running their plants well into December and maybe even in January in some cases, and I don't think that's happening this year.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Well, we've given you 14. We've got 2 more, and number 15 is another producer story, another deal-making story involving Vulcan Materials, with the headline of CPI Vulcan Materials make deal in Texas. This was reported on in October of this year, and basically CPI had acquired 8 hot mix asphalt plants, crews, and equipment in the Houston market from Vulcan Materials. So we've seen a couple of deals where Vulcan is making some deals based on non-aggregates, and with more of a focus, I suppose, on their aggregate assets. So that came in at number 15. And number 16, Jack, I think you alluded to this a little bit when we were talking about the government shutdown, but it was a piece by our MSHA and the Law contributors, Margot Lopez and Bill Duran, it was one of their year-end columns. It must have been November or December, but I guess the headline in this case was "What's next for MSHA amid government dismantlement?" And it's certainly still relevant to a degree. If you want to check that out at pitandquarry.com. So that's our top 16 at this stage, and just kind of thinking about it. I mean, there's a lot of positivity there. I suppose the last one was a little bit more of a negative, but by and all, it seems like 2025 was a good year for the industry, and I don't hear anybody, talking about crying, pain, suffering, or anything like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's taking that kind of look at it, and being able to talk to some people late in the year about how 2025 has treated them. It's left me feeling a little better about this year. I think there were obviously some points with, the tariff uncertainty, some of the geopolitical stuff going on, interest rates, price increases. I mean, just sort of it seemed like the headwinds just wouldn't stop coming. The universe was constantly throwing something at us in the aggregate industry and just kind of the economy and populace as a whole. But, again, talking to people as the year's kind of drawn to a close has left me feeling very positive about sort of how this year went, what 2026 will hopefully bring about. And, I think just kind of showing that this industry, again, is super resilient and really can handle whatever it gets thrown at it.
Year after year, you're right, Jack.
For over 50 years, processors of everything from French fries to frac sand have counted on Techway to provide the most durable, accurate, and reliable in-motion feeding, weighing, and metering equipment for their dry material handling needs. Techway specializes in providing tailored solutions that endure the test of time and material. The company's quality line of products are proudly made in the USA. And now, back to the show.
Well, you were on the road of late. You've been to Columbia, South Carolina.
Yep.
A lot of the COL cities, I guess.
Yes, sir.
In our country. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you saw, heard, and came across in those two spots?
Yeah, absolutely. So myself and our cohort Dino Vitanza went down to Columbus probably about a month or so ago at this point to the Ohio Aggregates and Industrial Mineral Association's annual meeting. Obviously just a quick 2-hour road trip for us, so that's an easy one to make and one we always enjoy going to. Pat Jackman is a great partner of ours, and he always does a great job putting on that show. Another record year. I mean, it's again, you want to talk about a positive 2025. This is another great sign of that. They set another record this year for registrants with 710 and exhibitors with 97. I mean, they just keep finding little nooks and crannies to put people into that to that Hilton down there in Easton, Ohio. So just an awesome turnout, and they capped it off with a really interesting and really kind of unique experience having. As their keynote speaker, having Vivek Ramaswamy, obviously former presidential candidate, now running for Ohio governor. He got up there and spoke for probably 30, 40 minutes, took some audience questions. It was a really cool experience, sort of getting to hear from someone of his stature. So that was a good get by Pat and the OAIMA. So congratulations on another awesome show. Like I was saying, got to hear from a lot of people, kind of talked about, year drawn to a close, what their final thoughts on the year were. And overall, kind of like we saw in our top articles, very positive overall sentiment, even though it was kind of a crazy year. And I was able to talk to two people in particular that were able to share some valuable insights, and that was Matt Konjevich with Melvin Stone and Elliott Archibald with LJ Inc. and Supreme Manufacturing. Starting with Matt on the producer side, Matt's an operations manager at Melvin Stone, an aggregate producer based in Wilmington, Ohio. And he kind of just shared some thoughts about another record year for OAIMA, how 2025 was for the company, and sort of what he expects from 2026. And again, it left me feeling overall very positive and hopeful going into the new year. So I will go ahead and toss it over to Matt for some of his insights from this year's OAIMA annual meeting.
How has 2025 been for Melvin Stone, and what is maybe your assessment of the aggregate industry as a whole nationwide looking at 2025?
So 2025, I would say it's about similar as 2024 was. Residential is way down.
Yeah.
Where we see most of our business going into is we have DOT projects, road building and bridge building, but a lot of it is just with the amount of data centers and stuff coming in. That's what's driving a very big portion of our business, and I anticipate 2026 to be similar.
Yeah.
But to give you perspective of just the volume of business in 2024, 2025, and what I think 2026 is going to be, I mean, it's significantly higher than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Just last thing, and you kind of touched on it a little bit already. What are your expectations for 2026? Like you mentioned, there's certainly been no signs that data centers are going to be slowing down. Hopefully residential can kind of pick back up a little bit. Volumes seem to be trending in the right direction. What are you maybe hopeful for? Or what are you expecting from the industry next year?
Like I said, 26 is going to be, I think, about the same as 25 as far as like data centers, because it's almost like every week we're hearing about, well, this county's opening data centers and that, and other counties as well as other types of industry. What I'm hopeful for is that interest rates begin to drop, and that'll help the housing market out, and we'll start to see more residential construction. So
fantastic.
I think that goes along with a lot of people, that first-time home buyers that would like to purchase as well.
You're looking at a hopeful first-time home buyer, so I hope you're right there.
Yeah, thanks again to Matt for making a little time for me at OAIMA. That was actually the first time I'd met him. Really good dude. I appreciate him taking a little time to talk with me, and I think definitely some valuable insights there. And again, I think the positive sentiment is definitely valuable. Next up, Elliott Archibald, a friend of the show, if you will, here at Pit and Quarry and Drilling Deeper. He is the Director of Business Development with LJ Inc. and Supreme Manufacturing. You'll hear that he really kind of echoed a lot of Matt's sentiments. OAIMA was a strong year. I like what he said, where he kind of said at this rate they're going to grow out of this venue. And honestly, I think if they keep growing at the rate they are, they definitely will in the next couple of years. And he really just kind of talked about how it was a strong year for LJ and Supreme, a strong year for the industry as a whole, and again, just sort of even amidst at times crazy year, left me feeling very positive. So without further ado, let's hear from Elliott Archibald.
I am joined by Elliott Archibald with LJ and Supreme. Elliott, thanks for making a little time to talk with me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jack.
Always appreciate it. First off, another record year here at OAIMA, record attendance, record vendors, record scholarships handed out, another phenomenal year. Just, can you talk a little bit about your experience at the show and what you kind of felt exhibiting at a show with so much engagement and attention?
Absolutely, Jack. So LJ and Supreme, we're members of 9 state associations, and I can say with certainty that OAIMA is certainly one of the strongest. Their engagement with their members, the resources that they provide in the industry and also in the state is without equal. Pat and his team do an amazing job, and this year was no different. It's before long they're going to be growing out of this venue. But reflecting on 2025, record year in the industry, record year in Ohio, and definitely a record year for our company. So what the industry is providing to us and in general is just fantastic. The positivity in the industry right now is just everybody's riding the wave, and hopefully the wave at least stays somewhat consistent. But going into 2026, we've never been this busy over an 18-month to 24-month time period. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but nothing but positivity.
Yeah. So what do you kind of expect for 2026? I know there were obviously some headwinds this year, but it seemed like the industry was kind of mostly able to ride, like you said, ride those waves, and some cautious optimism going into next year. What do you kind of maybe hope or expect from 2026?
I think that really one of the only things that is a little bit of an obstacle that we're all dealing with in this industry is some of the tariff-related stuff. That is a little bit of a road bump that we have to drive over, but everybody seems to be pretty understanding of it. We all just need to understand and do a great job of communicating with our customers with transparency. Going into 2026, though, it's been a true blessing for us to already have as much work ahead of us as we can possibly have going into 2026. The growth in the industry, the momentum in the industry is certainly helping us a lot. We always say that we grow with our partners, and our partners are the reason that we're realizing the success that we are. So all of this growth helps us justify investment in our company internally so that we can continue to grow and support our partners. But looking into 2026, we have projects that are going into 2027. So just nothing but positivity and nothing but positive momentum. I don't see anything slowing that down.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Really glad to hear that.
Yeah, thanks again to Elliott for again making a little time with me. It's always good to talk with him. Thank you also again to Matt Konjevich. Thanks to Pat Jackemit for having me. And then from there, like you mentioned, I got to head on down to Columbia, South Carolina a few weeks later for the South Carolina Aggregates Association workshop and convention. I want to make sure I get the title of that right. Again, another annual show for us. We always appreciate Jessica Palmer, Ashley Knapp, and everyone at SCAA having us down there. I was lucky enough to be able to give a presentation this year, my first time giving a solo presentation, and however nervous you probably thought I was, multiply that by about 10. But I got through it. It was good. I thought it went all right. Got to talk about some of the technology stuff that we were talking about here, focused on autonomy in the aggregate industry, a topic that I'm super passionate about, and I've enjoyed following the development of predictive maintenance and predictive maintenance, predictive monitoring, and then just also real-time data and how operations are sort of incorporating that into their operations. So another awesome show. They had I believe 300 attendees and I think 57 exhibitors. So another great turnout for SCAA. So congratulations to Jessica Palmer, SCAA, and everyone there for a great show. And thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to next year. Speaking of looking forward to next year, holy crap, we got a big year ahead of us, don't we, Kevin?
Well, there's ConExpo there. Looking at our notes here, that's coming. And
yikes!
It's interesting. I mean, sitting here in December, and I feel like maybe not one a day, but maybe one every other day. I'm getting a news release, a product release, some reach out from an equipment manufacturer that's exhibiting at ConExpo-Con Ag, and we're regularly putting that up there on pitandcorey.com. Check out pitandcorey.com/ConExpo. I think that's what it is. And we've gotten stuff from Eagle Crusher already. Yep. We had them on the show
2 weeks
ago.
2
weeks ago. Yeah, I'm trying to get my timeline here straight, Jack. Thank you. But, yeah, I mean, we're going to see that ramp up here as we're looking into 2026 already, and we're putting our January shoot to bed as we speak, so that should probably be getting into your mailboxes here very soon. And our January, February, March issues are going to have a lot of ConExpo content in it. And as I was just thinking about 2026, Jack, I mean, well, maybe first looking back on 2025, we talk about events a lot, and we capture content a lot at events, whether it's our own, being the roundtable, or it's these state shows, national shows, other sorts of events. Like, the events are basically just huge opportunities for us as content creators to kind of gauge what's going on out there. We're getting into Corey sites as well, visiting producers one-on-one, but those events are really great because they have congregations of producers out there, and they're vendors, manufacturers, and dealers, so we can kind of just take the lay of the land, ask some questions, and get an understanding of what's happening out there, and that's how we're bringing a lot of this to you, is just based on those conversations, our dialogue from each trip that we do. So, but Jack and I were thinking about what we're excited about for 2026. Again, it's just a couple of days away here, and for me, I mean, ConExpo tops my list, and as I'm thinking about it on the fly here, Jack, I'm trying to remember how many ConExpos I've been to. I already forgot. I guess it's been too many. I think it's 5, but I would have to stop and think. And for you, it's 2, right?
This will be my second. This will be number 2, yeah.
Yeah. I'm starting to show my age if it's 5. That's crazy. But yeah, ConExpo is March 3rd to the 7th, or February.
Early this year.
Yeah, it is early. I think that's probably the earliest I can remember it being in the last 15 years. But a lot of the tech themes that we talked about here, whether it was autonomous hauling, you just hit on predictive maintenance, we're going to be hearing about a lot of that at ConExpo. And as I think about ConExpo, I kind of come back to one of the dealer interviews I did recently with somebody who shared some reflection on the last ConExpo, which is 2023, and he indicated that maybe there wasn't as much change, or like game-changing technology at 2023's ConExpo, but he expects 2026 to be huge for that. And I think just looking back on the year that was, Jack, and how ConExpo kind of fits into that, I think every manufacturer is going to have some sort of technology piece, automation to their storyline. We're going to be doing a lot of coverage on that as editors of Pit and Corey, so you can certainly look for that at pitandcorey.com and in our upcoming pre-show show issues, which are February, March, and like I said, January, we're putting to bed here very shortly, and we've already got about 3 pages of ConExpo pre-show content in that as well. So ConExpo is huge. We always play it up as a magazine, and personally, it's just exciting to kind of, again, go out to an event and take tabs on where we are as an industry. And I think it's an exciting time for the technology front, as we've said on the show before.
Yeah, and we'll obviously be talking about ConExpo as we get closer and closer to it, and we're obviously going to have a booth presence at ConExpo. We'll be doing some on-site interviews, I'm sure. And for anyone that's interested, I'm sure you're going to hear this about a dozen more times before actual ConExpo. You can find us in the Grand Lobby. We are booth GL 31218. At least for me, again, I've only been to probably 3 or 4 events at the Vegas Convention Center as a whole, between Mine Expos, ConExpo, stuff like that. I think this is the first time I'm going to be based in the Grand Lobby. I don't know if
for us as a brand.
Okay,
too, Jack.
yeah, so that's going to be interesting.
It's not a bad spot. I mean, there's a huge footprint at ConExpo, as everybody who's been there knows. But being in the lobby, I think it's probably a good thing, because anytime someone's coming or going from the convention center or going to get a slice of pizza or whatever, I mean, they may be walking by the Pit and Quarry booth. So come grab a copy of our magazine if you're going to the March 3rd to 7th show. And if you happen to come by, and Jack or I are there, we're going to have our podcast equipment out there. So we'd love to sit down with you and hear what you're seeing at the show. So something to potentially think about for podcast episodes beyond March 2026, Jack.
Yeah, we will be one of the first things you see if you come in the northeast concourse entrance. We will be right there against the wall. So be sure to check for Pit and Quarry there.
And then on my list beyond ConExpo for 2026, Jack, I've got a couple other things. 2026 is a Hillhead year. Yeah, it's an international trade show. I've been to it once. It's in the UK. It's actually an outdoor show that takes place in a former tarmac quarry, and it's very impressive. It seems like it's been growing every year, although I know their footprint's a little bit tight because it sits in basically the bottom of this quarry. Somehow they continue to find ways to fit more equipment in there, more booths, get a little bit creative. And I know a lot of our readers don't necessarily go there, but on the equipment and more on the OEM front, I guess I would say, more of the American manufacturers are making a push into the European markets, and they're bringing equipment. They're establishing more presence in the UK and or Europe. So a lot of the companies that we're covering on the equipment and technology front here in America, they're heading over to the UK for the UK version of what I guess we would call Ag One or ConExpo or something like that. So I'm looking forward to that. And again, I haven't been to that since 2018, but it was a great show. I know Rob Fulop, our group brand director, has been to that as well a couple times, and just exciting to get into a different country and kind of get a sense of how their aggregates industry is performing, and also what's trending in terms of equipment and technology, because there are differences between America and the UK and Europe. Absolutely. And you talked earlier about, getting into a quarry and kind of working with people. This is, get you into a quarry in kind of a different way, having everything set up and, and like you said, in a quarry. So kind of a unique experience. And, yeah, like you said, that's certainly one that's kind of on my bucket list. I'd love to get to one of these days while I'm with Pit and Quarry. So very, very, big year. Both of these shows happen in the same year is always exciting. So as a staff, we've already kind of mapped out our first quarter travel. The first quarter is always busy for us as a magazine, Jack. I mean, I'm already looking at going to the Ontario Stone Sand and Gravel Association's January event. That's their Operations Health and Safety Seminar. Been there a few times. They're great partners at Pit and Quarry, and looking forward to some good education and networking up there in Toronto. And of course, I think we hit on the Pit and Quarry Roundtable and Conference at the top of the show, but that's coming up January 27th, 28th in Naples. It's hard to kind of believe that we're doing another roundtable here pretty soon, but we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We're going to be bringing the podcast down there, capturing some content for future 2026 episodes. So looking forward to that. And I know, Jack, you're going to be going down to the Georgia show. Yes, sir. You already hit on Ohio and South Carolina. I mean, 2 growing shows, 2 strong aggregate producing states, and Georgia is certainly in that grouping when you're thinking about top producing states in the country.
100%, and they always go all out for their annual management workshop and expo, and I believe that's going to be myself and I believe Dino Vitanza going this time, and they always put on a great show, similar to South Carolina with how they're growing. They've recently started adding heavy equipment and different pieces as part of their show displays, so always a great show. Again, another association and another executive director and Jeff Wansley that we have a great working relationship with, so always look forward to that one every year.
And just some other ones I wanted to mention, because there's so many events in the first quarter, it's kind of hard to get to them all. But the Indiana Mineral Aggregates Association does a great event. From everything we've been told over the years, their winter workshops and trade show is a premier one. The Michigan Aggregates Association's annual conference is in February, and similarly, the Iowa Limestone Producers Association does their annual convention that month, and some big conferences and activities taking place in the first quarter, and all that's going to feed into ConExpo, Jack. So hope to see you out there. And again, where's our booth, Jack?
We are in, let me get that pulled up again. We are located in the Grand Lobby, GL 31218.
Maybe the last thing we wanted to mention on the show, obviously we're coming to the end of 2025 here, but looking ahead at 2026, was thinking maybe our listeners, viewers are wondering, well, what can they expect of Drilling Deeper in 2026? And honestly, you can really expect more of the same at the end of the day. Jack and I are going to continue to be here. We're going to continue to bring you content along the lines of the equipment and technology front, business updates, safety. We're going to bring you interviews with producers, manufacturers, and other industry leaders. And a lot of the content from time to time takes on that handing you the mic tone, those episodes that Jack leads, and we've already got a few of those lined up for the first half of 2026, so you'll hear some exclusive content with Jack interviewing leading industry equipment manufacturers in the new year as well. So I guess just the message at the end of the day, Jack, is just expect more of the same in 26 as you saw here in 2025.
Yeah, no, exciting going into this new year and sort of everything that comes with it. And I think just running through again all that we've got coming up in the first quarter, again with it also being a ConExpo year, I guess we sleep in April, I guess, because we are going to be going for these first 3 months, and I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be crazy, but it's gonna be fun, and it's gonna be a lot of good interactions with people in the industry. So let's do it.
It's a grind.
Let's get ready. Yeah,
wear your comfortable shoes, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, for Jack Kapansky, I'm Kevin Yannick. We'll see you.
See you.